Hey, what's up? It's Matt, and recently I've been thinking a lot about the Monty Hall Problem. Now, this is a relatively well-known problem, but I still want to explain it to those who haven't heard it and offer my own take on how I understand it. Loosely based on a TV game show and its host, Monty Hall, the problem goes like this. There are 3 doors. Behind 2 of them are goats, and behind the third is a car. Unless you're a farmer, you probably want the car. You start out by picking one of the doors. Let's say you take this one. You don't look behind it. What happens now is Monty Hall removes one of the other 2 doors, specifically one of the other 2 doors that has a goat behind it. Monty Hall can do this because he knows where all the goats in the cars are, you don't. After he does that, you can decide to keep the door you originally had, open it, and see if it's a goat or a car, or you can switch to the door that's remaining, open it, and see if it's a goat or a car. This is the Monty Hall problem. Which of these actions, staying or switching, gives you the highest probability of getting the car and not the goat, or does it not matter? Before I go ahead and fill out the answer, why don't you click on the poll I put in the cards and say which you believe gives you the better chance of winning the car, sticking with your original choice, switching to the remaining choice, it doesn't matter because they're both the same, or you've already heard this problem and you know the answer before. Great, so now that you've filled that out, I can tell you the answer, which is that you should switch. When you switch to the door that's remaining, instead of opening the door you originally picked, you have a 2/3 chance of winning the car, whereas when you keep the door you started with, you only have a 1/3 chance. Now, if you thought that it was 50-50 either way and it didn't matter whether you switched or stayed, don't worry, you're like most people, including me and also certain famous mathematicians. But that's part of what makes this problem so interesting. So let's learn why it is in fact better to switch and understand the problem as a whole. Okay, let's reset this game, and this time instead of 3 yellow cups, we're going to use a red cup. These 2 are the ones that have goats behind them, and this will be the car. Now, the contestant doesn't know this and would never know this, but to understand this problem, it's good to look at it this way. In this new game, let's assume that this is the first door you pick. Now, Monty Hall will remove one of the goats, it doesn't matter in this case because these are both goats, and then you have the option of sticking with this or switching. As you can see, if you stuck with your original choice, you'd win, whereas if you switched, you would lose. So when you start out with one of the 3 doors, switching loses, staying wins. Now let's reset this and do this with door number 2. You pick this one, and Monty Hall now has to remove one of the 2 doors, but he has to remove a goat, so he'll take this one away. Now, staying with your original choice means you lose, whereas switching means you win. So in the second scenario, the second door, switching means you win. And lastly, in scenario 3, let's assume you pick this one. You don't know it's a goat, but it is. Monty Hall removes one of the 2 goats from here, leaving only the car left. So if you stay with your original choice, you would lose, whereas if you switched, you'd win. Essentially, if you pick one of the goats from the very beginning and switch, you win, whereas if you pick one of the goats from the very beginning and stay, you lose. And because there are 2 goats to only 1 car in the very beginning, you have a 2/3 chance of winning if you switch, compared to a 1/3 chance of winning if you stay. Here is a mapping of all the possible outcomes in this game. The bottom row is the door you initially select, and these are also the odds of winning if you decide to stay and not switch your door. Now, the middle row shows what door would be removed if you decided to switch. If you pick the car first, it doesn't matter if you remove goat 1 or goat 2, because your end result is still a goat. And the door remaining at the top is simply the results you would get if you decided to switch. And you can see here that you would win a car with 2 of the 3 doors if you decide to switch. And that's the Monty Hall problem. Now, if you recall in my video 2 weeks ago on the birthday paradox, one of the criticisms levied towards the teaching of certain mathematical problems is that sometimes they focus more on the mathematical explanation rather than the conceptual understanding. It's one thing to say, okay, this is mathematically why it should work, but it's another to say, I understand conceptually why this should work. So even though I think the mapping I just showed you is pretty clear, I want to give you another conceptual way to look at this problem. Alright, let's do this over again, but we'll take out the red so we don't know which one is the car. Here's how I initially understood this problem. If you decide you're going to stay with your door and not switch, then Monty Hall doesn't even need to remove another door. If you pick this door, you could just open it right then and there, since you know you're gonna stay and then later open it. Same with these other 2. If you pick this one, you know you're eventually gonna open it, you might as well do it in the beginning before he even takes a door away. However, if you choose a door and you know you're going to switch, that forces Monty Hall to remove an option, which is something he didn't have to do if you were just going to take your door and keep it. So by forcing the host to reduce your options, switching has to be the better strategy. There's also another really great explanation of why conceptually switching is the better choice, and that's done in a video by Brady Haran on Numberphile, so I'll put a link to that in the description and in the cards. There was one more thing I wanted to know about this problem. Switching is better than staying in the traditional Monty Hall problem. what modifications would you have to make to the game or problem or choice structure so that switching and staying give you the exact same chance of winning a car or a goat? I looked at the answer to that question in a second video I made on my other channel, Everything Else. And that's it. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed. Like I mentioned, go check out that Everything Else video if you want to see how switching and staying can be the same. I considered putting that stuff at the end of this video, but I felt like stylistically it didn't flow. And if you missed my video 2 weeks ago, click on the link to the previous video right here. Thanks, and I'll see you later.